Chef Brian Duffy knows the restaurant business inside and out. He's owned restaurants as well as consulted others on what makes a great one. From his own entertainment endeavors on Food Network's opening night to teaming up with John Taffer on Paramount Network's Bar Rescue and his latest competitive side on BBQ Brawl, Chef Duffy is causing a stir with his Duffified brand. Now, let's get to business. All right, guys, I want you to stop what you're doing and get your earmuffs out if the kids are in the room because Chef Brian Duffy does not hold back. You've seen him on Paramount Network's Bar Rescue and most recently, Food Network's BBQ Brawl. He is a chef, a restaurateur, a consultant, a media personality, a Harley enthusiast, and a certified Philly boy, Chef Brian Duffy. Chef, thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm stoked.
Let's get to it. You are Irish Italian, and growing up, that's how you knew you wanted to get into cooking. You must have had some crazy dinners and breakfast and all kinds of stuff going on in those families.
You know, I grew up in a house with I have two brothers and a sister. And then my mother and father. So there were 6 of us in the house at all times is kind of the way that it played out. And for me, it was like one of those things where we all ended up cooking. We all kind of played around and my mother and my father, to their credit, who worked their butts off. My father was a teacher. My mother was a nurse. They really kind of instilled into us the importance of food. So we had some crazy meals. My father was super, really adventurous when it came to cooking, whereas my mother was a little bit more subdued, like kind of that Midwest classic meat, potato, vegetable world. But we always had really good food no matter what. And we, to this day, still, I mean, it's one of the reasons why I'm not the svelte young man that I was when I was younger. Is because of food. I mean, we travel for food. Some of the greatest experiences we've ever had have all been around food. So for me, I kind of carried that on, and I still pay a little homage to my family and to my roots of being in Philadelphia and almost everything I do. But we had some great meals, man. Definitely thinking about like crabs, 5-hour sessions of sitting at tables, eating crabs all day. So we're no strangers.
Were there any really good arguments over the crabs or over?
You know what I think?
Italian
Honestly,
and
I think
Irish, two fires.
Yeah. Where are you from?
I'm from outside of Philadelphia, suburbs.
What part?
Like the western part now. I was from Bucks County, now I'm in Monco.
Okay, I got you. So, because I live in Ardmore. So, and I grew up in Ballackinwood, and I mean, for us, it was. We were an Irish Italian family, so we were loud and opinionated. I mean, my grandmother she died when she was 93, and I still remember her sitting at the dining room table and us having full-blown conversations about things that were going on in the world and what we were doing and all of that stuff. But food-wise, it was like, especially on a crab night was like, shut up and eat. You don't have time to talk while you're picking crab. You're picking the crab, you're eating, you're picking, you're eating, you're picking, you're eating. That's like kind of the way that we played. But, I mean, huge meals to this day. I mean, my premiere for BBQ Brawl, I had 85 people to my house. My 50th birthday, I cooked for 75 people. And I cooked, that's the way that I've done it. Is hospitality to me is feeding people.
Mm-hmm. Now, you took the more traditional route going to Walnut Hill College for cooking school, and then you went and worked under Marie LaCroix at the Four Seasons in Philadelphia. What advice do you give somebody that wants to go into the food industry? Because you've taken all different kinds of routes.
Yeah.
You're now a consultant. You're now, doing all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of had to, I didn't want to stand in a kitchen for the rest of my life. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Being a chef and cooking has opened up literally boundaries and borders to me. I've been all over the world. And for me, it was kind of like, I mean, we had to adapt. I wanted to do different things, so I had to find ways to make that happen. And in my case, one of the things that I tell everybody is, if you want to get into this industry, the number one thing about being in this industry is really knowledge, and the way to get the knowledge is by asking the question. And if you're working with a chef who's not giving you the answers to the questions that you're asking, then you need to leave that person. It's just a nature. It's a common courtesy for me. When I hire people, I want to educate people. I want people to learn from me so that they're not with me in 15 years or 10 years or 5 years. I want them to learn from me so they can go and do other things. With that same thing comes growth for me. If you're working with me and you've been with me for 5 years and I'm still teaching you how to do food cost, then I'm not doing my job the right way. So I want you to learn and I want you to move on. I want you to take the knowledge that I've given you and move on. And if I'm not giving you knowledge, then you need to let me know that I'm not giving you the knowledge. And then it's my responsibility, especially in this day and age. We no longer just interview people for jobs. We're interviewing them while they're interviewing us. People are coming into work. They want to know what it is that they're going to get besides just a paycheck and a free meal. What am I going to get out of working here? What am I going to learn? How is this going to benefit the rest of my life? Is the way that I see these things. So I tell people all the time, if you're working for somebody and you're asking a question and they're not giving you the answer or training or teaching or coaching you along the way, fuck out, go home. Don't go to them, go to another restaurant. There's so many other people out there that can teach you things while you get paid at the same time.
That's a great point, is what you're being taught and what you're learning too.
Yeah.
Now you created this Duffified brand
of
everything that's going on. How did you decide what kind of food you wanted to create and make this brand?
So Duffified was really kind of something that came out of just a world of, I decided I was never going to say no again. It's one of the reasons why I'm on the podcast. I don't say no to things. I want to do really cool things. If somebody said, hey, I have an interest in having you on my podcast, who am I to say no? You're interested in something that you want to hear from me. My job is to be able to share that with you. So that world kind of turned into me traveling all over the world, me doing events in Guam and Cuba and Italy and Spain and Germany and Belgium and France and all throughout the United States and every possible place that I could ever end up. I was just in Jerusalem and Spain a couple of weeks ago. I was in Italy and Mexico before the new year. It's like, for me, to say no to something, it's got to be pretty deep. It's got to be pretty big, or it just doesn't benefit what it is that I want to do as well. Because to say yes to something, it has to be mutually beneficial to two people. That's the idea for me. Both of us have to be able to get something out of that. I don't want to just say yes to something because I'm the only person getting something out of it, or you're the only person getting something out of it. We're community no matter what we do. So I want to say yes to things that entice me, that engage me, that make me think outside of the box. So Duffified, the whole idea behind that was about doing whatever you want. It was about not saying no. It was about living life and experiencing things across the board. So for me, the food that I try to do is just super fun food. I'm not pretentious in the way that I cook, but the Duffified way is really going above and beyond and going over the top.
Now, you went onto Bar Rescue and you work with John Taffer, creating all these different bars and different tastes and everything like that. What creates a good restaurant to get those people through the door?
Honestly, one of the number one things that creates a great restaurant or bar is well, there's three things that I see it as. One is the atmosphere across the board. You've got to have a great atmosphere for people to come into. Two is all about the staff and the training level of the staff that are in there. And three is all about being consistent in the product that you're going to serve. If I serve you a great burger on a Tuesday night and you leave that restaurant and you say, oh my God, how about that? What's up with this guy? That was out of this world. And then you bring 5 friends back on a Friday night, it sucks, then I suck. That's it. I'm not consistent in that. So you've got to be consistent in product. The other thing is that people really have to start. People talk about paying attention and they talk about steps of service and they talk about training their staff, but there's very little follow through when that happens. So if you think about it, I open a restaurant up. Before I open that restaurant, I spend 2 weeks training my entire staff. Okay. I bring everybody in. I've got managers. I've got liquor reps. I've got food reps. We're talking about product. We're walking through menus. We're creating each dish. We're showing, we're teaching, we're training. Fast forward 2 months, 2 months. And the next level of that, it's already broken down from a 2-week period down to a 5-day period if you're lucky. And then think about the average server. The average server comes in and they say, hey, we're going to have you follow Joe here for 4 days so that you can get everything that it is that we're talking about. And then we're going to put you on the floor and you're going to trail with this person and go through all that. And then you fast forward to 6 months and it's like, hey, have you ever worked in a restaurant before? You know, I mean, it's like the follow through with training just never, it just stops after that initial opening. So one of the things that I talk with my clients about is daily pre-meals, where we talk about what our goal is for the day, whether it be a sales goal, whether it be a food goal, whether it be a liquor goal, whatever it is that we want to do for that day. We want to talk about what our goals are for the day. And then the other part of that is being able to train your staff. Hey, just so you guys know, today we're going to talk about Cabernet Sauvignon. Cabernet Sauvignon comes from this grape, from this region, from here. Let's taste it. I want you guys to taste this so we know what we're talking about. Today, we're going to talk about Mezcal. Mezcal is not a tequila. Mezcal is this. This is what this is. This is the product. Today, we're going to talk about the #1 selling item on our menu, which is going to be, I have no idea, risotto. Risotto is actually the method of cooking the rice. The typical rice that's used is arborio. It comes from the Po River. It comes from here. Like educating your staff on the things that you want them to know, constantly create the upsell. Too many restaurants want to have upsell without education. Today, I want whoever sells the most bottles of wine today wins. Meanwhile, I get out there and I'm 21 years old and I have no idea what the difference is between a rosé and a Cabernet. You know, so it's like train your staff to get them out there to be able to talk to your guests and really do it on the educated way. How many times have you walked into a restaurant, sat down, taken a look at the menu and said, hey, can I have that without? And one of the first responses is, well, let me check with the kitchen. If you're checking with the kitchen, then the chef has not done their job to teach the staff what is in the menu that they created. Okay. That's like going to medical school and learning from a surgeon who doesn't actually show you what is involved in the surgery. Just doesn't make sense to me. And then the other part of it is ambiance, man. Too many people let their staff choose the music. Too many people let their staff choose the lighting. And too many people let their staff create the rules of what the restaurant are. #1, inspect what you expect. The oldest saying in any corporate, in any world, in any corporate-driven restaurant, all comes down to inspect what you expect. When I walk into a restaurant, the first thing I look at is the lights. How are the lights at 5 o'clock? How are the lights at 9 o'clock? The second thing I take a look at is how is your music? What is your music level? What kind of music is playing? If I'm walking into a sports bar and I'm walking in and all I hear is the TV on that's talking about the game that happened last night. No, that should be on closed caption. You should have music in the background for the people that aren't watching that TV. Like too many people don't pay attention to that. The other thing is allowing your staff to choose the music for the restaurant. I mean, why not allow them to pick the menu at the same time? Why not allow them to pick pricing for what it is that they want to do? Because you like a different music than I do, but neither one of those match our concept. So you got to find music that matches your concept. And with that comes along, a lot of people don't pay attention to a little thing called BPM, which is the beats per minute that happen in music. If I walk into a restaurant and my music's like, I'm going to sit in your restaurant and I'm going to hang out there for 2 or 3 hours because that's what you're telling me to do. Your music is dictating my energy level for what's going to happen. If I change that a little bit to now my energy level rises. Now I'm eating a little bit faster. I'm talking a little bit faster and I'm drinking a little bit faster. So by paying attention to the music that you have in your restaurant, it's going to make a huge difference in the retention of the guests that are coming in, how long they stay, and whether or not the energy level within the restaurant is going to be uprising. It's going to be fun and lifting. That's what you want.
Well, thank you
So
for
that's
that
a very
little
long
concert,
answer
too.
to a very simple question. What's that?
I said thank you for that little concert too.
You're welcome.
I
I
think we
can
needed
sing.
that.
I'm no stranger. I got some pipes.
You could turn this into karaoke night too.
Hey, I'm no stranger. Somebody sent me a video a couple weeks ago of me when I was doing karaoke in Jerusalem. So there you go.
Oh,
I was
now,
belting
yeah.
it out.
We need that on Twitter. Come
I don't know
on.
if we ever need that anywhere,
Yes, we
but
do.
it was pretty
Yes,
damn good.
we do. We totally do. Yeah, we have football season coming up, and you just shifted gears to barbecue brawl with all these different other chefs on there, and you guys, and I look at it as more of like bougie barbecue, and I love it because
Yeah,
I am not a burger hot dog. I want all different kinds of stuff there, and I
right.
love it so much. How do you pull from your inspirations?
I mean, it's, one of the easiest things that I say to people all the time is it all comes from technique. The art of the preparation creates the experience. So for me, everything that I've learned through all these years, I mean, I still on a daily basis use what I've learned in culinary school. Okay. So I still use the same technique of how to braise, how to fry, grill, saute, barbecue, smoke, whatever it is. I still know those things. But for me, it's like if you give me a concept and you say to me, okay, today we're going to be doing 5-star barbecue. Well, that's not that big of a deal. I mean, in reality, the basics of barbecue come down to radiant heat from below or above. It comes down to a smoke, char, and crust. These are things that we know. We want this stuff as we're being judged when we're doing it on the show. So for me, it's just kind of a no-brainer. I mean, I pull from everything I've done over the last 25 years of being in a kitchen. I pull from that every single day. A couple of weeks ago on the show, I did a salt crusted bronzino that I actually I stuffed it with citrus and a whole bunch of herbs and goodness, and then I created an amazing crust that went on the top of it, which was this awesome salt crust that I ended up putting a whole bunch of chilies into and citrus zest, and then I smoked that and then I roasted it. So it's like I know how to salt crust a fish. Now I just have to figure out how I can impart more flavor to it and make it smoky and crusty and charry all at the same time. So it's about taking technique and kind of moving it forward. It's really not that hard. And in fact, if you know the basics of cooking, then you can really go very far in this style of a show. Because I mean, take a look at Robert. Robert is a world, he's a world champion barbecue guy. The guy was brilliant. His knowledge of meat and the science of meat was unbelievable, but he didn't know how to grill a scallop. Okay. So it's like there's two levels to barbecue. There's the barbecue guy who goes out and does the competition. Competition barbecue is not reality barbecue. And I'm not saying that in a negative way or trying to cut into anybody, because I know some great barbecue champions who have done unbelievable things on the competition circuit, but they can't grill a hamburger. And that's just the basis of it. So in a situation like Robert, who, his final dish was bacon and okra, there were different things that honestly I think could have been done to that okra to make it a little bit more appealing. And that comes from knowledge of food. And Robert has great knowledge of barbecue and competition, but not of the basics of food. So for me, look, I've got a great background. I know my flavors. I know my profiles. Now it's just a matter of changing up the cooking technique in reality.
Bringing that up with knowledge of the different foods and everything, how do you handle like the new vegetarians, vegans, food snobs, or just picky eaters? How do you handle them?
Food snobs can go fuck themselves. Let's be real. I mean, your expectation of what you're walking into is, you've got to have the expectation for that. You're setting the expectation for that property or for that restaurant or for that meal. But food snobs, I could be considered a food snob because I hate shitty eggs. It's like if you're going to give me a commodity-based egg, why are you not giving me a shitty steak at the same time? It's like, there's too many people out there that develop menus based off of pricing as opposed to creativity and actual sourcing of product. I talk to people all the time and I say, what concept are you looking for? What do you want me to do? When I create your menu for you, I want to know what your concept is first and foremost. And if more people would just be realistic and say, my concept is I want to pay the least amount of food that I possibly can. I want to charge as much money for it, and I want to make as much money for it. Well, look, if you're going to be real with me, then I'll help you with that. But if you want to have a sports bar that's female friendly, that offers a wonderful smoked program, and wants to serve the freshest, most local product possible, and then you're just bullshitting me when I hand you a menu and tell you that your ribs are now going to be $39 a rack because of the fact that we're getting a quality rib in, I'm not buying a commodity piece of shit, I'm getting a high quality product in, then just be real with me right off the bat. So that's kind of how I deal with that with clients and stuff like that. But when it comes to vegetarian and vegan in the other world, more power to them. They're out there. They want to eat in restaurants as well. And honestly, I think that the vegetarian and vegan chefs that are out there right now are creating more creative products than the average restaurant that's on the street. Okay. Look, anybody can grill a goddamn steak. Maybe not 100% to the best of their ability, but anybody can grill a steak. But it takes somebody who has creativity and technique and inspiration and passion to make a vegetable dish taste phenomenal. There's layering, there's flavors, there's processes that go into this stuff. Just throwing salt and pepper on a burger that you smash down with a good piece of cheese on top of it doesn't make you a phenomenal chef. Okay, it just means that you can cook a burger really well. But I think that anybody who's creating, I have a very good friend of mine. Her name is Tori Lubecki. She's a brilliant, very dedicated and driven person. She was the lead in Cirque du Soleil for 10 years. So her work ethic is unmatched. And she's a vegan chef. But you know what? She cooks with me when I make my meat products, and she follows technique, and she makes a beautifully cooked piece of meat as a vegan. But her creativity when it comes to vegetarian and vegan is unmatched. I think what I can say in that is, like, I want people to step outside of the box. I want people to think outside of the box. I want them to do things that are bigger and better and different. So how do I feel about those people? I love those people. And the reason why I love those people is because they make people like me think outside of the box.
Now, you brought up the ingredients. We got to talk about that, because you just went on Twitter with the shitty pepper and the shitty eggs and all of that.
People are killing me.
What are you telling people now? Go out to the farmers markets, go out to wherever you can get and look at the better ingredients.
I mean, look, I know that not everybody can afford to pay $7 a pound for a great tomato, but buy a great tomato and put it up against a commodity tomato. Realize that your tomatoes are picked when they're unripened. Okay, they're unripened. And the reason why they do that is so that they can travel from California to Philadelphia. Okay, that's why they're doing that. They're pumping it with gas to make it red so that by the time it gets here, it's red on the shelf. And our problem as Americans, I believe, is that one, we're highly influenced by the appearance of what it all is, the packaging, what's happening. You walk to a grocery store's trash bin at the end of the night, and you go to the dumpster, which is completely enclosed. And there's so much food that goes into there. It's just a waste, because people aren't going to buy the ugly looking tomato. They're going to buy the nicest looking tomato. Me, I pull my tomatoes from my vines out back, and it's not like I have a massive garden. I live in the suburbs of Philadelphia over here. I'm not on a sprawling acreage. But I pull my tomatoes right before they're ripe so that they can then ripen up on my counter. They sit on my counter for a couple so they can ripen up. That's the way that it's supposed to happen. You're supposed to be able to pull from a vine and put it on your plate. That's what farm to table is. Farm to table's changed to, Cisco to table in reality when it comes to it. Anybody who understands the business, it's Cisco to table. But I want people to start asking questions about where their food came from. I want people to stop walking into a grocery store and just buying pre-ground black pepper and then telling me that you don't like pepper in your food because you've never had a fresh ground black peppercorn. I want people to use real salt. I don't like iodized salt because it leaves a tinny flavor in your mouth, and it's not a good salt. So for me, I have 7 different types of salts on my counter that I use all the time, from a flake sea salt to a mineral salt that goes into my pasta, to smoked salts that I finish things with. I want people to look at the ingredients and start to buy a better quality of product. When you buy chicken from a grocery store, a commodity-based chicken, it's been fed so that we can get those chickens as big, as plump, and as quickly as possible onto a shelf. You know, last night I bought 2 beautiful chickens from Whole Foods. Doesn't have to just be Whole Foods, but it was a Bell and Evans. It's a naturally raised product. It's air chilled, so it's not bleached, it's not frozen, and it's a different tasting product. The chicken itself just tastes better. And I don't have to mask it with a whole bunch of stuff. It's why when I cook, I use minimalistic ingredients, because I want the flavor of the food to shine. And then the accoutrement that I put around the outside of it, or the side dishes or whatnot, are really going to kind of mimic and match flavors like that, so that it's a complete meal. So I want people to look at better products. I understand not everybody can pay $8 a dozen for eggs like I did yesterday. I understand that. Okay. But to me, the price for good food, I have to pay for it. And honestly, the more people that buy the better product, the cheaper the price goes. Okay. You're able to get a $3 chicken nugget from McDonald's because it's shit food, boys and girls. It's just shit food. It's loaded with chemicals. It's loaded with antibiotics. It's half the time it's not even real chicken. They're putting products on there to make things stick, to make it look good, to make it taste good. They're adding in all this extra crap and chemicals into the food because we accept it. That's the thing. You go to anywhere else in the world, we don't accept those things in our food. Hershey's in the United States is different than Hershey's overseas. Coke is different in the United States than it is overseas, because they don't allow the products that we allow in our country in our food. And do you really want to go down the wormhole? Look at the fact that autism has grown exponentially just in the last 10 years. 8 in 1, 1 in 8 children is born with autism, which has gone up from 1 in 16 over the last 5 years. We wonder where these things are coming from, unfortunately. And I am a massive proponent for kids with different abilities across the board. My charities all include that. But we have to take a look at why this stuff is happening, what is going on. You know, I mean, it's something that's really important to take a look at. Major.
Well, we've had a couple guests on in the past with different backgrounds in different food and medicine and stuff like that. How would you pose it to someone like in your situation who's maybe not in a suburban setting to actually start trying to grow their own vegetables?
I mean, growing your vegetables is fun. Don't get me wrong. Okay. How realistic is it that we're going to be able to sustain ourselves on the vegetables that you're growing? If I want to live on,
but just learning about it.
It's not hard. Honestly, you don't even have to, you buy a tomato, go to the grocery store, you buy an heirloom tomato. You cut it in half, you remove 10 of the seeds, you put them on a paper towel, you let them dry out, you put a wet paper towel over top of it, and holy shit, it sprouts. It's amazing. You don't even have to do anything to it. God created this little product that is going to create and feed the world off of the seed that's on the inside of it. Shit, you can go on TikTok right now and find 500 ways to cultivate a seed. And what do they call it? Propagating it. You know, like we propagate seeds in my house all the time. It's a constant. We last night I was talking to my girlfriend and I looked over and said something to the effect of, like, what are we doing with this tomato plant that is growing out of the ground, nowhere near a pot, nowhere near any of the other tomatoes? Because somewhere along the way, I rinsed something off and ended up with a seed that landed in the gravel between my paver stones and my steps. And her response was, it started to live there. We need to see what's going to happen with it, you know? And then I noticed I've got 5 budding tomatoes coming out of this random rogue tomato plant. It's not hard to do. You water it, you know, you give it a bunch of sunlight and these things happen. Like, it's not a hard thing to do in that case. I'm not saying you can raise your own chickens in an apartment in Brooklyn, but, you know, I mean, you can definitely go to the grocery store and start to make better choices. Why are you buying frozen vegetables? Why are you buying frozen vegetables? Like, no offense, isn't it more fun to learn how to cut a carrot than to buy a frozen pre-cut carrot? You know, they say that 100 hours makes somebody an expert. So it's 18 minutes per period. Imagine just chopping an onion for 18 minutes for a couple of days. You become an expert at cutting an onion. And then you switch that to celery and carrots. That's what I learned in culinary school. You know, I open restaurants and I tell people all the time, rather than giving you the tool that's a mandolin that's going to cut your carrots for you, show me that you can do it with a knife first. You know, give me a fishing rod and I'll teach myself how to fish. Give me the fish and I'll teach myself how to cook. Give me the cook and I'll teach you how to eat. It all starts with the basics. The art of the preparation creates the experience. So buy a better product and learn how to cook. I'd love to teach you guys. And again, it comes down to tools like we talked about on Twitter. You know, having the right tools. How many times do I see people that go to the grocery store and they're buying they buy a pair of tongs off of the shelf for $9.99 that last you for 6 weeks. Like I have a list that I'm building on Amazon. I actually started that list. I did. So I have a list on Amazon of the best tongs that you can buy, and they're $1.99. You know, and they're going to last you for a really long time, and they're available on Amazon. So like, I wanted people to take a look at pots and pans. You don't have to have, a $500 set of pots and pans, because most of those pots and pans you're not going to use in the first place. You need a big saute pan. You need a big fry pan. You need a sauce pot. And then I love a pasta pentola or a larger, like 2-gallon stock pot that I can make soups and stuff like that in. You don't need all the extra stuff. It's like 22-piece pot system for $795. Yeah, well, the handle is one piece. The lid is another piece. The insert is another piece. It's, like, buy the right stuff. Same thing goes with knives. You don't have to go out and buy a $500 knife. I don't even use $500 knives. I search my knives out on eBay because I love old school carbon knives. So I find my knives in vintage shops and on eBay. And if you take a look at my knives, when I cook and cut, I rarely have like a fancy knife. They're usually stained. They've got black carbon all over them. They're the knives that I love the best. I do have some really nice knives as well. I've been given some great knives by some great companies that I use just for ease of operation. And in my kitchen, my daughters know not to wash certain knives compared to washing regular knives. So get the right tools, buy good food, and learn how to cook. The basics, and you'll be good to go.
All right, I have the biggest Philly question ever.
Go.
Cheesesteaks. Are you sick of them?
Alessandro's. What? Cheesesteaks, am I sick of them?
Yeah.
No, that's like asking Chicagoans if they're tired of deep dish or if they're tired of Italian beef. Like, it's something that we have to embrace because it's a nature of our culture. I mean, it's the same as like getting a hoagie. I hope I didn't say that like Philly, because I don't talk like Philly that much, but it's the same as like, what else do you do on a Saturday afternoon after you do the front yard and you clean out the basement and you take your stuff to the dump or get it to Green Drop? You go and you buy a hoagie. I mean, it's like, and you get yourself a bag of potato chips. Like that to me is just a classic Philly afternoon that I talk about all the time. I'd be like, we just had a crazy day of mowing the lawn and picking weeds in the garden and dropping stuff off at Green Drop. Who wants to get a hoagie? And everybody's like, I want an Italian. I want a shorty. I want a classic. No matter where you go. I'll tell you what, though. I do love a Primo's hoagie.
Yeah.
Love a Primo's hoagie. And cheesesteaks, for some reason, were always like that Friday night movie meal.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime anybody comes to Philadelphia, one of the first things I say to them is, hey, look, I've got like 4 hours that I can spend with you. And here's what we're going to do. I'm going to grab you at the airport or grab you at the hotel. And then we're going to run into the city and we're going to go to Pat's and Gino's, because you've got to try each one. You have to. I mean, they're iconic for Philadelphia. I'm not saying it's the greatest cheesesteak, but how can you go to New York and not go to Times Square? How can you go to Vegas and not go to the Strip? How can you go to Philly and not go down to Pat's and Gino's and grab yourself a cheesesteak, one from each, because they're completely different experiences across the board. And then the next day we're going to wake up and we're going to go over to like, I mean, I love John's roast pork. I think getting a roast pork sandwich there is a classic, iconic thing. And then shit, man, go and stand in line at Delisandro's. They make a great cheesesteak. They make a great cheesesteak. I'm tired
In
of cheesesteak
between
egg
two.
rolls.
Oh
Fuck the
yeah, that's
cheesesteak egg
chill.
roll. Get rid of that with ketchup on it. Give me a break. I just saw
Oh,
somebody who like, yeah, it was on Twitter last night. Somebody presented their cheesesteak egg roll. It was like bias cut, garnished, ketchup drizzled all over. It was a riot. So classic.
what do we see next with Brian Duffy between BBQ Brawl, your consulting, your traveling, your Harley rides to every place across the globe?
Every place except for Philadelphia. I
Really?
don't ride in Philadelphia anymore.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
they're
we
assholes.
can understand that. We
They're
can understand
assholes.
that right now.
Yeah, nobody pays attention on the East Coast when it comes to motorcycles at all. It's really a dangerous place to ride a motorcycle.
Mhm.
I typically ride in the Pacific Northwest. That's one of my safest places. I love it out there.
Well, it's
I got
also
hit.
gorgeous.
Oh, it's unbelievable. It's a whole
Yeah.
different world, a whole different experience out there. So honestly, what's next for me is, I mean, I'm on Barbecue Brawl. So I did that as it was a competition. I'm not a competition guy. I did it so that I could prove to myself that I can do a competition. Um, and it doesn't affect my life. With the way that things happen, I had a boatload of fun doing the show. I mean, we shot it. We were out there for 3 weeks. And really what I gained from that show in itself were the relationships that I have now. 12 new friendships. We did not go in on a dramatic level. We all are very good cooks and we're at the top of our game when it comes to stuff. So it wasn't about berating or belittling or beating people up on stuff on that show for me. It's all about having as much fun as possible. And the other reason was, I mean, I did Bar Rescue for 3 years. It was a great show. I had my own show on Food Network called Opening Night. I've done TV for 18 years. It was just another kind of notch in the bedpost in reality,
Mhm.
just to kind of say that I did something. Will I do competition again? Yeah, who knows? You never know. I mean, I'll never say no. I'll never say no to certain things. But when it comes to the other stuff, I mean, I still have great partnerships with restaurants. I've got a really cool concept down in North Carolina called That Place in the West End, which is a really, really funky sandwich shop and poke restaurant. So we literally have like a 50-50 split of unbelievable sandwiches. We recreate iconic roast beef sandwiches from all over the country. So like we've got a beef on weck, we've got a Kelly's roast beef out of Boston, we've got a cheesesteak, we've got Chicago, we've got Italian beef. We've got all different versions. Got a tri-tip sandwich. Like we do really cool food from all over the country. Basically the menu was based off of my travels, and then we have a poke component to it because it was a successful poke shop originally, and we really like that style of food. So why not be able to offer the best of both worlds for a guy or girl to come in and have a big fat ass sloppy hot roast beef sandwich and a bowl of poke that's going to make you feel good at the end. But I also have my consulting firm. So I open restaurants for people and I consult on the finances of restaurants. I talk about labor. I talk about food cost. I do menu creation. We do a whole bunch of creativity sessions with my chefs where we will sit around and just talk about food for 4 hours. And then we'll go to the grocery store and buy food and come back and just cook. So like I do really cool things like that. I do evaluations on properties where I walk in and I talk about the stuff that we talked about at the beginning of this, which is what makes a restaurant great. Because you think about it, when you walk into a restaurant for the first couple of weeks, you're doing this, you're looking around, you're checking everything out. 2 months into it, you're walking in like this, you're staring at your phone, you're not even looking at whether the lights are on. So I pay attention to a lot of things that most people would not notice when it comes to that. Service, how much time people spend on their phones, how long people sit in the seats, average check, how we can increase that, what we can do to educate our staff in a much better manner. My job is to give the smaller restaurant operator an opportunity to make a boatload of money and ultimately open up multiple properties. Most of my clients, I would have to say 80% of my clients are multi-unit operators now. Because of the way that we build businesses. I love my clients. They're aggressive. They go after what they want. And we have a really good trust in each other for the way to do things. I'm involved in a company called Yum Crunch with my brothers. part owner of a company called Pot in Germany. It's a spice company that's delicious. What else do I have? I'm an advisor on a cookie company out of Alaska. So I have my hands in a whole bunch of stuff. I just love to have as much fun as possible. And, during the winter, I ski, and during the summer, I mountain bike, and I just try to live and explore, and work allows me to do that. So that's what's next.
All right, you brought up the 18 years in TV and all the stuff that you've
Yeah.
done with your own show and all the other shows. Is anybody going to beat Bobby Flay?
Look, I'm going to tell you something. That the reason why I chose this show was because of the fact that I've judged Beat Bobby Flay for years. It is an unbelievably respectable production company. I love how they put food forward on every single level of the show itself. And then when you sit down and you have judged Bobby Flay for the 10 or 15 times that I have doing that show, you realize how talented he is. Okay. The guy's been doing this for like 30 years, and he does it because he does it really, really, really well. So, I mean, like, more power to him. And then you get on set with him and you watch him cook. Like, I was on his team for the first episode. I was on his team. Super happy to be picked by him. We speak the same language when it comes to food. We speak the same flavor profile when it comes to food. I like bigger, bolder flavors. He layers a lot. I don't, but that's okay. And then I got the shaft and ended up getting over to Sonny's team, but we'll deal with that at a later date. I mean, anybody wants Bobby, but I'll tell you what, the guy is a talented motherfucker. Like, it's just that simple. He's a very talented individual. And I'm not here to blow smoke up his ass. I'm not sucking off the teat of Bobby Flay. He's a talented individual. I respect him for what it is that he does. And he shares his knowledge, and he puts it on the line every single time he goes up to do a competition. So more power to him. So have people beaten Bobby Flay? Yes, they have beaten Bobby Flay. Does he lose a lot? Not really. He's just good at what he does.
Where can everybody find you on all kinds of social media so they can listen to everything you have to say and maybe give you some of their recipes, because you
Look,
judge everybody
I don't
everybody
want
else's plates.
I don't want the recipes. I want to see your final dish. That's what I want to see, because it's, 80% of your enjoyment of a meal is visual. So I look at people that put a lot of time and effort into putting a meal together, because I know how hard it is to have to cook for a family. I mean, I was a single dad for a long time, and I worked at that same time and traveled. So I knew what I had to do. And I watched my parents, my father worked during the day, my mother worked at night. I watched them both split the responsibilities. So I know what it's like to have to come home and cook a meal. But if you can have the skills to cook that meal, practice with a knife, learn how to use a saute pan the right way, learn how to use the oven the right way, then it makes cooking that much more fun. And the other part of it is you just spend all that time putting the meal together, present it, make it look good. I just cleaned out like 2,000 pictures in my phone today from all of these food pictures that I have. And actually, here, I'll show you dinner. This was dinner last night. Which we'll just do this real quick. So this was super fun. This was like a risotto that I made. Somebody had sent me lobster mushrooms, chanterelles, and truffles. So I made a really cool lobster and sweet corn risotto with butter, poached chanterelles, and chives. And then I shaved truffles over the top of it. Like, that meal took me 45 minutes because cooking risotto takes that long. But in reality, the thought process was 5 seconds. Here's what I want to do. Once you have the technique, you can do anything when it comes to food. Learn the technique and have a boatload of fun, and it makes it a lot more fun to cook. But show me your pictures. I'll give you critiques across the board. And I always say to people on Twitter, especially, because I love the conversation of Twitter. And I just got back onto Twitter. I know it's called X, but it's always going to be Twitter to me. But
one of your rants.
For me, I know, I love the conversation of food. I love when people say, hey, I don't know how to saute the best. What is your suggestion? Those are things that I really like to hear, because I want people to enjoy something that has given me a lifetime of experiences. So So yeah, so you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Chef Bri Duff. You can find me very rarely on TikTok at Chef Bri Duff. And then Facebook, I do a lot of promotion on Facebook and I do a lot of videos over there. I'm going to start reviewing restaurants after I leave them. Yeah, I'm going to start a whole new
Uh-oh.
YouTube channel just of my reviews of restaurants.
Oh,
So
this is about
that's
to get
coming.
good.
That's coming next, just for fun. I really want to do it because I really want people to know that people pay attention to what happens. And when you serve shitty food, it should be noted.
This is
So
about to get real good.
yeah, well, I mean, look, like I walked into a restaurant the other night and I sat down and the bartender just kind of ignored me and didn't really have anything to say and kind of wrote me off because I asked for a glass of water to start. I don't drink much. I don't drink much at all. And when I go out to drink, I if I go out with my buddies, I drink like Budweiser. Okay, that's my beer of choice. If I go out for a night with cocktails, I drink a Mezcal Negroni and I've got to have a gentleman's cube, a big fat ice cube. I'm very particular about what I drink because I don't drink much. Okay. So I sit down at a bar and they come over. Hey, what can I get you guys? Like a little energetic. I'll have a glass of water. And they drop. It's like their whole level drops down. Now I'm going to tip you on the glass of water, the same that I would tip you if I got a cocktail. If I go into the airport and I get a glass of water at the airport, I'm going to throw you $1 or $2, just like I would if I were getting beers with the boys. It's just the way that it plays out. But to watch the demeanor of this guy change almost to one that was, we were non-existent at that point. Didn't want anything to do with us, was kind of annoyed that we even ordered food at that point. I listened to the guy talk about his relationship that was happening. He was talking to people next to us, how he has a new child. He's putting a new kitchen in. He's really trying to make ends meet. My bill was $44 and I left $25 as a tip. And I handed it to him. I said, hey, brother, thank you so much. Oh, man, thank you so much. And then he didn't even have the balls to say goodbye to us when we got up and walked out of the restaurant. Like not even an acknowledgement that you just left. It was all about the money. That's all it was. That was the whole thing. Create experiences for people. They're coming into your properties because they want to spend their hard-earned money. You walk into a restaurant because you're willing to spend money. You want to spend your money there. I'm not shopping in a restaurant. I'm buying in a restaurant. Make the experience be above and beyond. Exceed the expectations of the guests. That's a rant that I talk about all the time. And you can find that on Instagram and Twitter at Chef Bri Duff.
Chef Brian Duffy, our time is out.
Way up.
We gotta go.
We did it.
You are fucking awesome. I love you so much. This is so great.
Thank you very
I hope
much. I
you come
appreciate
back
it.
on in the future and talk more about everything you're doing.
Anytime you ever want me, you've got my stuff. All you got to do is just let me know. We'll make it happen. I appreciate the fact that you sought me out and that you wanted to have me on. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for allowing my rants for the last 54 and a half minutes.
Thank you so much, Chef Brian Duffy. I am Tatiana Ryan, and this is the Businessy Podcast.
Ooh.